mean, why not get a do a mandatory survey and check everything that comes in? There's part of it is the reality is we classified, I mean, we estimate that we harvested, like I said, almost 38,000 deer, almost 39,000 elk, and over 11,000 pronghorn. We just don't have the capacity and time to be able to check all of those animals. It'd be a very intensive effort. Other states that are doing that don't have quite as much harvest of different species of animals. From our mandatory surveys that we already do for black bears, moose, bighorn sheep, mountain goat, last year we checked 1,264 bears across the state, 292 moose, almost 200 bighorn sheep between Rockies and deserts, and 158 mountain goats.
Yeah,
How
Commissioner
do you
Bray.
estimate wounding loss?
Into the next part of it. So wounding loss. So part of this comes from previous research, especially like our elk estimates actually come from Dave Freddy's stuff that he did between the Grand Mesa and the the Gunnison Basin, where through collared animals, he was able to look at what wounding loss he observed. So I can't remember him exactly, but I think for instance, like yearling bulls was actually like 12% wounding loss. For cows and for cows and other bulls, I think it was around 15% wounding loss. So all of that is also calculated into that model. So where we can, we try to use data where we've got it from previous research and estimates that other people may be using as well.
Just anecdotally, it seems like that's increasing.
I do hear that a lot. It does. I mean, it seems like it's something that I'm hearing more and more. One of the other things that I've heard, at least from talking to some of the other states that do have mandatory where all animals are supposed to be reported, is that they do know they're not all animals are getting reported, but they really don't know what percent aren't. So what they end up with really is just a minimum harvest estimate. Kind of moving into this next part is also this idea of additive versus compensatory, which really kind of also gets into a little bit more moving into the herd management process. But it's just additive mortality is when hunter-harvest mortality adds to that of natural mortality, whereas compensatory mortality is when survival, reproduction, or movement into the population increases or remains stable because of the harvest of animals. So maybe where animals are right at carrying capacity, habitat conditions, density dependence kicking in, that on conditions where we have those extreme winter events, some of these animals may die anyways. So additional harvest is only at that point considered to be compensatory, not additive into the population. So now that we've collected data reflecting birth rates and mortality estimates, we can estimate the population size for N and T, this population dynamic equation on the bottom, and ultimately get at what our population is going to be doing in the future for growth. And then using that, we can kind of get at how to maybe manage a population into the future. So now that we know where the population is currently, we need to figure out how to manage the population into the future. To do this, we generally develop a herd management plan for like the next 10 years. You guys review a herd management